let's talk about interviewing, right? Like some interviewing tips, some interviewing techniques, strategies. As you can tell by the amount of jobs that I have, I'm currently working, well, I'm not working them, but I currently got 11 jobs. They're all subcontracted. And interviewing is one of the things that I do best. Interviewing, being on calls, being, if I can toot my own horn, all around charming. And so I've developed some strategies that will help you guys be better at interviewing. We even recently have the case of one of the guys in the mentorship landing 120K, his second 120K job, precisely because he used my guides. Like they ask him, like it seems like they literally ask him one of the questions that I cover in some of the interviewing guides that I have, and he was able to come up with the answer immediately because he was already prepared. So before sharing my screen and all that, I just want to talk about a little bit about the most important part of the interview process. Interviewing is what gets you jobs, right? So your interviewing skills is what actually lands you jobs. And a lot of people have a hard time in the job market, in the job search, because they think that what gets them jobs are their job on, let's say, on the job skills. And this is not true at all, because most jobs you can learn on the go if there's something that you don't already know, or it's something that you can, basically you can pick up as you go, right? Unless it's something super crazy. But in those cases, you're probably not even getting to the interview process, right? Like we're talking about, we're not interviewing for being space engineers at NASA or SpaceX or something like that, where we wouldn't even make it to the first interview. But we're talking about regular white collar clerical jobs where like you may not know a particular specific tool that they use, but it's just a matter of like you can pick it up as you go. Anyway, I was saying that I used to notice this a lot when the whole learn how to code thing was in full swing, when everybody was rushing to learn how to code. One of the things that I realized is that people, because I experienced this, like one of my uncles, like he tried to get into coding, and I would see him waste his time, hours and hours, trying to learn the basics of trying to catch up, not even the basics, like trying to catch up, because to get a job in tech, you can't get it just by learning basic HTML and basic JavaScript or something like that. You really have to go, you really have to go dig deeper. Like employers are currently not giving any chances to people without experience or juniors. Like they're willing to give you a chance as an unpaid intern, but you have to be fresh out of school. Like they're not gonna hire you as like a 35 unpaid intern so you can learn how to code. Like that's just not gonna happen. And so I would see people just wasting their time learning all this stuff about coding. And in my experience in real life, not only would it take years to learn, right? Like years of experience to learn, but a lot of the job interviews, the questions would be super complete. They would be totally unrelated to the actual job, right? Like to the way work was actually done. Right, like I'm talking about tech because it's the best example I can think of. But this happens in every industry where the on the job, like you're not rushing necessarily every day to complete a super complex task. Super complex tasks are usually tackled by teams. You have some time. There are deadlines. Like it's not like every day you're like this super intense. Genius trying to solve equations, right? Like it's usually a collaboration, a lot of talking, a lot of meetings, a lot of like things that anybody could pick up, that anybody reasonably smart could learn, but employers are just not giving you that chance, right? Like employers are not training you. So the point of all of this of what I'm saying is that people invest a lot of time trying to get on the job skills. And this is especially for you guys in the program where you guys are trying to land a job outside of your experience, right? I know some of you, because some of you we're just going with whatever, your current experience, like we just optimize your resume and we're trying to, make it more polished, your current, showing your current experience. But some of you in the program, we're trying to like land you jobs and careers where you don't necessarily have a lot of experience, or any experience at all. And the reason why we can do this, the reason why I came up with this program and why this can be done is number one, what I said. Most jobs you can learn, if you're reasonably smart, you can pick up. So it's okay, right? Like we're not necessarily going to hurt the employer, or you're not going to make a fool out of yourself while working. Number two, it's because what gets you jobs is interviewing skills, knowing how to interview. So practicing interviewing, knowing what to ask, knowing what you're going to get asked, because this is the other thing. Basically, all job interviews are the same because all employers are the same. They all ask the same questions. They all get them from Google. It's the same thing. So all you have to do is Google those same questions, Google those interview questions, and now you're basically showing the same experience as the person asking you the questions, okay? And so primacy, I call this the primacy or the primacy of, not Peter, but the primacy of the interviewing skills over on-the-job skills. What gets you jobs are your interviewing skills. Nobody actually tests your on-the-job skills. They test your interviewing skills because interviewing and working are two separate. The system is broken, basically. Like the entire employment system is broken. Interviewing has very little to do with your day-to-day work and your actual skills. So most people are worried about, I got to get better at my job. And that will have, as collateral, you will get better at responding technical questions from your interviews, but it doesn't necessarily make you a good interviewer, okay? So what makes a good interview? What makes you a good interviewee, not a good interviewer? What makes you a good interviewee? Basically, eloquence. You can talk about your experience, about what you've done in an eloquent manner. You're not just nervous, like responding to the point, like, do you have experience with this? Yes. And then, you were quiet. You don't know what to do. Like, yeah, yes, I do have experience with that. Well, tell me a little bit. And then the interviewer has to like take it out of, dig a little bit deeper. Tell me a little bit more. And then, or they ask you about your experience, right? Like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, about your experience. And then you read basically like a bullet point version of your own resume, right? Like they can read your resume. They don't need you, when they ask you those questions, they don't need you to read your resume bad. So how do we achieve these eloquence, right? Because maybe you're not naturally eloquent. Like that's, that is not only, I would say it's a natural trait. It's a skill that you can practice for sure. It's also a natural trait, but maybe a lot of people don't have it, right? The best way, you don't have to be eloquent forever, right? So I'm not telling you like, just be charming forever, turn on the charm and never turn it off. This is for interviewing specifically. It's like, how do you become more eloquent in your job interview process? Well, you do this by getting used to telling your work history, talking about your resume as if it was a personal story, right? Because this is more compelling, right? Like just a bullet point list of your achievements of, of your achievements of your work history does not, maybe it's not necessarily that it's going to disqualify you from the interview, right? Like maybe you still get the job like that, but it's not going to increase your chances, right? Like it's not going to make it more likely that they come away impressed with you. So you need to get in the habit of until you master this, until you've had enough interviews where you can just basically tell your work history by heart. You need to get into the habit of taking your resume, especially if you're in the program where we basically make up your resume, right? Like where we craft your resume from kind of scratch. You have to get into the habit of reading it and thinking what this person's personal history looks like. Okay, what somebody with this resume, what's the history? Why did you go to school here? Then you went to work here. Why that happened? And then get used to telling that as a personal history, right? And then this is for the resume as a whole, but then specifically for specific parts of your job history, of your work experience, you have to do the same. You have to get used to talking about the things that you did at whatever employer, right? At ex-employer. You have to get used to talking about it as if it was just a personal story. If you just go and read, I achieve multiple sales. I multiplied the sales of the business. That sounds impressive, right? But in a conversation, it kind of makes you look like a spurt, right? Like it doesn't make you look like, it makes you look like you're reading, right? And it doesn't make you look like you have the experience, the expertise that they're looking for, right? Like Yeah, I'm sorry. It just makes you like if you're just there and they're asking you questions and you just say yes, no, multiplied, sales, you just look like a spur. You don't look like a charming guy, an eloquent guy that is in control. Because the more eloquent you are, without again, this is not about necessarily bullshitting, right? Like this is not about offering bullshit excuses, like certain, like a politician that doesn't know what to answer. This is about being comfortable talking naturally about work related topics, specifically your work history, specifically your work history at one place or some places in particular, right? You need to get used to telling your greatest achievements, not as a bullet point, but as a story. Hey, and so for instance, I'll give you an example. One thing I get asked all the time, remember that at my jobs, I'm formerly a QA automation. And so in every job interview, because every job interview is the same. This is the other thing. The more you interview, the more you realize, the more jobs you have, the more you realize employers are all the same. And the more interviews you do, the more you realize that all interviews are the same. So you'll just get used to giving your charming, eloquent answer by heart. But one of the typical questions that I get asked, can you tell me what your greatest achievement in your professional, what your greatest achievement is? They say it like that. And then I'm a little bit cheeky and I say, you mean personally or professionally? Because personally, and then I just like take frame, right? Like I take the frame of the conversation and go, well, because personally, I married a great woman and we've had 10 years of marriage and I consider that a great achievement. And so they laugh, oh, no, I mean professionally. And then I go, oh, okay, you meant professionally. All right, so professionally, one of the greatest achievements that I've ever had was when I was working for a particular client. They were a logistics client and they had over 1,000 automated tests, and we managed to reduce the execution time from like 8 hours to 2 hours. And this took a lot of advocating from me and like talking to QAs and technical leads to get this done. And yeah, I would consider that one of my greatest achievements. And I know it by heart. I didn't even have to think about this because they've asked. I've been through so many interviews. They've asked me this question, which they will ask you so many times that I just know it. Notice that I didn't go. I increased the efficiency of the automated test. No. I told the story. As a matter of fact, I could make it even more dramatic. It's just I don't want to get into the technical details because not all of you are automation QAs, but you could go into the drama of the situation. It's like the executing the automated test was taking so long that everybody was basically reticent to make any changes to the code, and so that sort of stuff. You get the point. So tell your story, tell your work history as a personal story. Get used to that. Study your resume. The resume gets your foot in the door, but it's also the baseline, the base that you can use to charm them with your experience, to show them that you have mastery over the subject. All right. And that is what gets you jobs. Your interviewing skills is what gets you jobs. Being charming, being eloquent, showing mastery of the subjects that you're getting asked. That's what gets you jobs. So now, before I move on to the next topic, which is more specific examples of not so much of the story part, but like there are some, like I said, all interviews are the same. They will ask you the same kind of questions, the same, in the same range, right? Like it may not literally be the same questions, but they will be from the same pool of questions. That's more accurate to say. And there are a couple ones that are tricky. We covered them actually, some of them in our previous call, but this is more like on topic. So before I move on to that, does anybody have any questions, any comments, any doubts about it? Remember, I'm reading you in the chat, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat.
I just wanted to highlight that I recently got my J2 in order, so I just wanted to highlight that you really helped me nail the technical questions in the interviews. Your like guides, even if you're not doing QA, it really helps to go through that stuff because you get a sense of how you're supposed to answer. Like you get the guy who's got the blue light glasses or whatever in your interview, and he's asking you all sorts of technical questions. You're not going to get them all, but you need to have an idea of what kind of answers they're looking for, or they want an explanation like, why would you not know this? And you can't just say like, my SQL's rusty or something like that. They want something more specific than that about your previous roles. But yeah, I got asked a really tricky technical question my final interview that I wasn't expecting, and I was able to cover it. I just wanted to highlight that. Rolf really
Do
helped
you
me with
remember?
that.
Do you remember what? Do you remember what you got asked?
I was asked a question about the model that I was using for. I said I was using a deep learning model because I was using RapidMiner, and I got asked a question about like something specific to the deep learning, like whether it was. I think like the methodology for how it was being trained, and one of the things you highlight in your documentation is that you need to have like in addition to the story, you need to have a clear awareness of like the areas around your field as well and how you worked with other departments. So I said I was using RapidMiner for these programs. I'm not overly familiar with that, but based on this position, I don't know that this will be the main focus of that role. And he admitted, he said, yeah, he was just interested in it, in deep learning and everything. So he was clearly not asking that for the job's sake. He was just more curious. So, if I spent 5 minutes trying to BS my way through it, it probably would have given him a bad taste in his mouth. But I was able to circumvent that by just being honest, but not making it about what I didn't know, but stuff I did know.
You didn't respond. No, I don't know, which is it kills the conversation. So you bring. Thank you for that, and I'm glad I finally got to hear the question that you got asked. I know I have been hounding you for you to tell me exactly what you got asked. I only knew your situation. He's the one that I was mentioning in the beginning, where he secured his second 120K job. And he did it in part because of the interviewing guides that we provide you guys. But yeah, you bring an excellent point, which is when you're bullshitting, when you are basically trying to provide an answer that you don't know the answer to, your eloquence levels fall. So one thing that's important is that it's not expected of anybody to know everything. So it's okay to sometimes say, I don't know. The important thing is maintaining frame and redirecting to something else. Again, do not do it like reading a bullet point. Like, no, that's not on my resume. No, I don't know it. Kills the conversation, it doesn't make you look bad necessarily. Again, it's not that you're not going to get a job for just saying you don't know something. That's not what I'm saying. But it makes you lose charm points. It makes you lose eloquence points. And so in their minds, you drop a little bit from preference of like, yeah, I really like this guy. They go like, yeah, he's not bad, but I'm not sure. Let's keep looking. Right? It's basically like you want to wall them. You want them to close the sale in a sense. You want them to close the deal right now. They're not going to offer you the job at the moment because that thing doesn't exist where that's from the movies where like you go to an interview and they offered you the job immediately and you shake hands. Like, no, everything has to go to HR now and it has to be properly documented that you guys they interviewed an appropriate amount of candidates, that sort of stuff. But the decision is still made basically at the interview time, like immediately there. Like they know if they want to keep looking or they know if they want to hire you. They just won't like tell you immediately. But you close it then. Like it's kind of like closing a sale. Like you're closing the sale then. You're getting a client. And so, again, it's not expected of anybody to know everything and for you to have used everything and worked everything. Obviously, if it's on your resume, you should be able to defend it and you shouldn't say, oh, actually, I actually didn't use it. I just put it on my resume to be cheeky, to be cute. No, obviously, if it's on your resume, you should be prepared to answer questions about it, even if the answer is something like, yeah, I've used it, something like I've used that tool before, but it's very deep, so it's like I'm not an expert on it, but I've definitely used it, and I'm I have experience with it. Something like that shows that you're not trying to pass yourself off as an expert in something that you're not an expert in. You're supposed to be an expert in general in your field, but you're not supposed to be an expert in every single thing, little detailed tool that you've used. That nobody's expecting that. And the other thing is that sometimes, sorry about that. The other thing is that sometimes the person interviewing you doesn't know about the tool either. They're just asking. Sometimes they ask you about a particular tool, a particular technology, a particular technique, or whatever. And sometimes they ask you, like, do you have experience with this? And you go and, like, you say, yeah, I've used it before, and they leave it at that. Yeah, I have experience with that. I've used that for a couple of years, or yeah, I've been exposed to working with that in a couple of projects. They leave it at that. They don't prod any further because they don't have any idea either. They're just like going through a checklist. You have to remember that the interview process in a company, it's usually the person interviewing you. It's usually just a guy. It's usually just a worker that they more or less force to interview you. Unless it's like a very big important position and you're getting interviewed by like the CTO or something like that. If it's just like a regular job, the person interviewing you is probably, he's just another worker. He's not an interview specialist. So this is why you being charming, eloquent, maintaining frame, owning the narrative of the interview makes you shut up in their perception, because it's like you have a guy that is just a guy. He's not an expert at interviewing. He's not particularly, most people tend to want to get along. They tend to be agreeable. So they're not out there to try to debunk you, actively debunk you. It's kind of like you debunk yourself, right? Like they just ask you questions, a couple questions. And if you seem capable, that you wow them basically, okay? They're not, it's not high stakes all the time, right? Like it's not an expert interview. He's not a detective, right? He's not Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, right? Like trying to catch you in a contradiction. That's not what's happening. So as long as you're eloquent, charming, maintain frame, tell your history as a story instead of a bullet point, a list of stuff, you'll wow them. You'll shoot up in their perception. They'll want to hire you. So let's move on then to the exercise. I want you to answer. Pose your answers in the chat, public. We're all gonna read each other's answers. All right. So these are typical questions. They are what I call key job interview questions, because they're questions that 99% of the time they will be there in the interview process, and you have to almost like you have to be in total control when you give this answer, right? Like you have to give a very credible, direct answer that it doesn't even look like you are too conflicted about the answer, right? So let's start. I'll ask the question. You guys pose your answer in the chat. No shame. We're here to learn. Doesn't matter. I'll give you guys suggestions. Like if somebody poses a great answer, I'll say, yeah, that's a great answer. If somebody poses a terrible answer, I won't say it's terrible. I'll see what I do. But it won't be a humiliation ritual or anything. All right, let's start. So question number 1. Why? Remember that in our resumes, you're always currently employed, even if it's not true. That's part of, when we talk about resumes, I'll explain why, but there's a couple of big no-nos in resumes, which are no gaps, no overlaps, no unemployment, and no freelancing, all right? So even if you're currently unemployed, the resumes that we optimize for you, they always say that you're employed, that you're currently employed. So you will get asked this question. Why are you thinking of leaving your current job? So tell me, why are you thinking of leaving your current job? What makes you be in this interview here with us? Reading you guys in the chat. All right, we have more opportunity. We have looking for a full-time remote position. I want to stretch myself. I don't know what that means. Looking to challenge myself with unique opportunities. All right, looking to expand my skill set. All right, all right, there's one right answer. There's one good answer, but it doesn't count because I know he read the guide, so he's just saying what the guide says. So it doesn't count. You get no credit for that. All right, so let's evaluate your answers. So we have more opportunity. We have looking for a full-time remote position. We have I want to stretch myself. I don't know what that means. If you can explain what you meant by stretch yourself. Looking to challenge myself with unique opportunities. Looking to expand my skill set. Change industries. I'm looking to move into a job that is more in line with my specialty. All right, so there are some decent ones. There are some that are inoffensive answers, but there are some that are not good. And I said I wasn't gonna like humiliate anybody, but I'm gonna explain why they're not good. So, for instance, if you say looking to challenge myself with unique opportunities, you come off as a jackass. You're like, what do you mean? Like, challenge yourself with unique opportunities. Here's the thing. We all know that we do this for money. They know, employers know we do this for money. We know we do this for money. We are not, unless you're like a recent grad in a very hot field like AI or something like that, something that's very trendy, very cool. People are not looking to challenge themselves. People are just trying to get more money. So it is a canned answer. So here's the problem, right? It is one of those answers that it like sounds good, sounds inoffensive, but it's so cliche that it's almost as if you were saying like, I don't know, or you were saying, I just want more money and I'm just bullshitting you. Like I'm just giving you a bullshit answer. So the trick to answering these questions, this type of questions, is to sound like you are not bullshitting. Like you are not trying to give them a cliche answer, even when I am giving you a prepared answer, right? But the way that we should phrase these questions, or we should phrase these answers, is avoiding as much as possible cliches. Because remember what I said, they are getting these questions from the internet, right? Like they're like employers, like the people doing the interview, they're not coming up with unique questions on their own, and they're expecting super unique answers, which is why if you give them a unique answer, they'll be wowed. But they know the answers to these questions because they probably do the same thing that I tell you to do. They probably go and Google whatever, I don't know, business analyst interview questions, but they are taking the role of the interviewer, right? Like, well, you're interested in the answers, they're interested in the questions, but they're going to read the answers. And if they've done multiple interviews, they know they'll be more exposed to the cliched answers. So try not to talk about challenging yourself or like that sort of stuff. It sounds like you're just like saying a lie instead of saying the real reason is that you want more money, right? Which is the real reason. It's true, but it's not polite to talk about it, right? If we were just allowed to say like, hey, I just want more money, and you're offering more money. Oh, I want to eat, and to eat I require money, and to get money you usually require a job, and you're hiring, right? We're out to say that, then this program wouldn't make any sense. Like we would just be saying directly things to each other all the time, right? So sorry. So don't try to do the looking to challenge myself with unique opportunities. That's good, AJ. Like the employer's thinking, all right, so what's in it for me, right? Like, and the other thing is that they could be thinking, all right, so if they get bored with this job, then they're just gonna, if they take you at your word, let's say that it is true that you want more challenge, right? Like they go like, oh, I believe this guy, but you know what? Turns out that this job is actually pretty boring, and even worse, like your job seems more exciting. Like it's so specific, right? Like there's so many situations where just saying you want a bigger challenge doesn't make any sense, because if you're moving horizontally, right? Like if you're moving vertically, like if you're trying to get a raise, it kind of makes sense of like, hey, I've outgrown my role here. I want more challenge. I want more responsibility. But if you're moving horizontally, if like you're just changing, same job, same position, one company to another company, it's like, companies, it's boring. Like they know, again, unless it's like a super trendy, super cool industry, super cool, in vogue company, right? Like, the fans, Google, whatever, Facebook, your whatever mediocre Midwestern company is not, it's not exciting. There's no challenge. It's the same thing over and over again. It's the same employer, same task. So it just comes up as inauthentic. So I suggest that, if you're moving vertically, you could use it. I'm not saying never use it. I'm not saying completely discard it. If you are like going from, like a regular analyst position to like a lead position, it makes sense to say something like, but don't say it like don't say it in a cliche way. Say it in a personal way. Again, make it your personal history. Say, I've kind of, I've kind of seen everything that there is to see in my current job, my current position. I've been taking more responsibility, but at my current place, they're not really giving me room to grow. So I thought I would explore other opportunities where I could, where I could maybe be more, more challenged. You can say that the more challenged stuff, but it has to make sense. It has to be vertically. Like you have to be moving from a lower position to a higher position. Horizontally, there's no challenge. Everybody knows this. Like there's no challenge. You're not challenging yourself from going from employer A to employer B doing the same thing. It's just the same thing, right? So try to make it authentic. One thing, all right, let me go over the other answers. Some more opportunity, want to stretch myself. I think that what he meant was that, like stretch his opportunities, his challenges. Looking to expand my skill set. This is very bad. Looking to expand my skill set makes you look, don't never say this. Do not say this. This is very bad. The reason is it makes you look like a mercenary that you will just leave them, you'll ditch them as soon as you get a chance. Don't make it seem like you're milking the employer. It always has to be something that will benefit them. And for instance, in defense of the previous answer of the challenging yourself, if you take on more responsibility, if you are more productive, that benefits the employer. So it kind of makes sense, even if it's not explicitly stated that, oh, like I want to do more for you, honey, right? I want to do more for you, employer. But it's kind of implicitly stated. If you make it about yourself, though, like centering, like, oh, I'm just expanding my skill set. Like I'm just trying to see what it's basically. It's almost like saying I'm just seeing what's out there. I'm just seeing who pays more. I'm just seeing who's a better suitor, who's paying more. Do not try to pass yourself as a mercenary, even though you are. It is. It is I'm not trying to make you feel bad for answering that. It's a great opportunity for everybody to understand that it's not a good answer to try to make it about yourself and try to make it about your own personal growth separate from the company, because you can gain skill. Because what it conveys is like, I'll just gain skills and ditch you. Like I'll just gain. If I get bored, I'm just gonna leave. Right? Like if I feel like I learned everything that I could, then I'm just gonna leave, right? Like, and employers don't like that, because employers are schizophrenic. On the one hand, they don't really care about training people and giving people chances to learn new stuff, but on the other hand, they pretend they do. Like they want to pretend that they want to foster a place where people can grow and learn more stuff. So, but you gotta like flatter them. You can't make it about yourself. You gotta flatter them a little bit. Okay. A good way, so AJ's saying that a good way to think of it is that I have a skill set already that will benefit you, rather than I wanted you to teach me. Basically, you have to make it a quid pro quo. You have to, even not explicitly all the time, because then it also comes out as inauthentic, right? Like when you are dealing with people, there's a reciprocity there, but you are not making explicit the things that you will do for each other, right? Like all the time. Like you don't go to your wife and tell her like, I paid the bills and I paid for your nails and now I want X from you, right? Like that dynamic is there implicit, right? Like there's a reciprocity there, but you don't want to bring it to the forefront. You don't want to be talking about it explicitly all the time. So that's why you don't want to say anything to employers that you're just hopping around. You're just on the pulse of the market, just seeing what's out there. I'm just trying to grow my skill set. I'm just trying to make more money. You don't want to sound mercenary, even though we are going to be mercenary, but it's just not the game, right? Like it's not polite to say it like that. I will now give you my answer. I think right now with what's happening with after the pandemic and some of the return to office stuff, we have a kind of free answer, which is I'm just looking for a fully remote opportunity. Completely reasonable. You can even flatter them further by saying that the reason why you frame it as something that reflects good on them. So why do you want a fully remote opportunity? Well, because after the pandemic, the pandemic showed that we can work, remotely, that, that there's no impediment to do that. And so now when an employer does not want to offer fully remote opportunities, that signals a red flag that what they want, they're not interested in getting the best talent, or that they don't trust their employees. It shows that they want to control employees. So I think it's a green flag. I think it's very good that when an employer is still willing to offer fully remote, because it shows that it treats its employees with respect it trusts them, and it's interested in getting the best talent possible. Doesn't matter where they live. This, of course, works for if the position that you are applying to, that you're interviewing for, is explicitly fully remote. We talked about not discarding hybrid positions or hybrid job listings in our previous call. So only say this answer if you're applying to a company that is offering, like, it is explicitly 100% remote, because then you'll be insulting them, right? But yeah, you can use some of the other answers or retweak what you guys would, your first instincts. Just try to make it a little bit more about the employer. Yes, we have a question. Go ahead.
Hey, Rolf. Just wanted to comment on that. Like, I definitely agree with you on what you said, that saying as you want a job in fully remote, like, you're being honest, that's the truth. But I work in recruiting, and I've had this is just my experience, but I've had 2 of my clients just straight up axe candidates because all they wanted was the fully remote. They were like, when they were answering questions like that, they're like, oh, we don't want these guys. All they want is a remote job. So just wondering if that's just, so I've only had that twice, so maybe it's just a thing, but what do you think?
Yes. So that, again, like I said, the answer could be perceived. So what matters is that the perception of the answer is not given as if, like, they're just trying to get something from the employer. That's why I emphasize that you want to make it a flattery, right? Like, you want to talk about remote work in general, about the benefits and what it means when a company offers fully remote opportunities, more than you being like, oh, I'm owed fully remote opportunities. Like, I just want it. It's something that I want, and if you don't give me, like, I don't care. You have to. I have no doubt that it could look bad. That sort of answer could look bad in some circumstances if all you talk about is the requirement. Because fully remote is if you think about it, is no different than any of the other problematic things that I said. Look, I just want more money, or I just want to learn more stuff and ditch you, basically. Like, I'm just here to, like, I'm like a parasite learning stuff, and then I just leave. I'm not here to provide value to you. So that's why, again, if you tie it together with everything that I've been saying, that is, you want to have a personal story behind what you say. This goes towards the kind of answers that we're giving here in this situation, which is, you don't just want to say, oh, just fully remote. I just want fully remote. You have to give an answer. It's like, during the pandemic, my family and I, we got used to, the remote arrangement, right? Like, my wife is still homeschooling our kids, so it's been tough going back to the office, being hybrid. And so I'm looking to try to, like, I'm open. You don't want to sound desperate, and you don't want to sound, again, entitled. You're just like, I'm just trying to see if we could, if I could arrange another remote job opportunity, fully remote, to kind of to be more with my family, and then make it more about the employer. Like, and I also think that it speaks well. Which is true. This is not. I mean, it is flattery, but it's not empty flattery. Any employer that is offering fully remote, still, it is showing it's showing that it's willing to trust its employees. It's not necessarily 100% about control. So the answer, whatever answer you give, it will be dependent on the way you give it and the way you frame it. So there's no, it's not like an automatic, like, silver bullet. Like, you just say, I want a fully remote job. It's the same thing as saying, like, I just want more skills, I want more money. It's like, there are ways of saying that. You can even say, I want more money, in a way, frame it in a way that is appealing to everybody, right? Like, again, it's that thing of like, moving vertically. It makes sense to talk about more money, more compensations. What matters is how you frame it. So the takeaway here is, I'm giving you some canned answers so you can use them, right? So you don't have to think too hard about it. But the key takeaway is, make everything personal, a personal story, like a personal characteristic. Like don't make it dry, right? Like make it lively, make it charming. And when it's something related to employers, hint, don't go too overboard about, like, all the things that you can do for the employer, because it comes off as inauthentic. Like, we both know that this is transactional. We both know this is about time for money, skills for money, tasks for money. but make it be more like it still make implications about the things that you can provide them, that it's not just about you. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Makes sense what I'm saying? Okay. All right. So next question for the exercise. Why do you want to work for us? So why do you want to work for us? It's kind of the corollary of the previous question, but it's different. And so this is more explicit. So before it was about your personal intentions, and now it's more about them, like what makes them special. And again, this you can't answer. I just want more money. Like I heard you were hiring. Why do you want to work for us? I heard you were hiring. So go ahead, put in the chat, what would you answer to this question? Why do you want to work for us? I like it. The company mission resonates with my core values. Look at their mission statement, say something about my values matching theirs. Good, good, good. Work-life balance, okay. Whatever you say will help the reputation as a good company to work for. Okay, I like it. I like all the answers. I still like the angle of the remote stuff, as long as you're framing it as flattering to them. And the thing is, so remember again that you gotta be careful with the cliche answers or the answers that seem too inappropriate for like an employee. Let's put it like that, because again, it makes sense to talk about how much you like the company, or like how much it aligns with you, their values align with you. Those are not bad answers, but most people don't. Like if it's like a mediocre company, right? Like if it's a company nobody knows about, if it's a company that makes plastic bags, right? It's not really prestigious. There's no prestige in there. And so while you still have to flatter the employer, you can't just go in and say your company is mediocre and I just want the money. Again, big no. You have to be careful to not go too overboard, right? It's kind of weird that somebody would be super excited to work at a whatever bank, at a credit union. You know what I mean? I'm super excited about working at this credit union here in the middle of Iowa. It's weird, right? Like it's weird. So as long as you don't take it too overboard about like, oh, and it sounds too canned, like you're just like, this is not an answer. Because remember that if you talk about like the mission statement, you haven't actually read the mission, it just comes off as you giving a canned answer, right? So I would look at their mission statement. I think this is good. I would look at their mission statement and say something about my values matching theirs. I think that is good. And remember to tie it up to something that is more personal in your job search as well. Okay. So don't take it too overboard about it, unless it's like Google, where it's normal to say, I just love your company. Like I just love, I don't know, Netflix. Like I'd be so thrilled to work there, to work for you guys. It's been a dream. Most employee, and remember the other thing that I told you, you're not getting interviewed by the owner of the company, right? So you're getting interviewed by just like a guy, right? And he's a guy that's probably like you. And so those type of answers work for maybe HR, that sort of stuff. But if you get asked that in like a technical question, in a technical interview, which you shouldn't, right? But it could happen. Then it's just gonna be weird, right? Like just imagine, put yourself. This is a good heuristic. Put yourself in the interviewer's shoes, right? Like you're interviewing a person, you ask them this question, and they say the question that they say the answer that you know it's a cliche because you would use it yourself. How would you react to that? Again, it wouldn't necessarily deduct points, right? Like it wouldn't necessarily hurt your chances because it's a canned answer. It's inoffensive, right? Like that's the thing about these type of answers, right? Like they're inoffensive. They won't make you look weird like a psycho, okay? But it's kind of like a lost opportunity to show your personality a little bit more, to be more unique, to be more charming, to be more eloquent, and to really distinguish yourself from the other applicants. Okay, so another good heuristic is, imagine you're conducting the interview, like you're interviewing somebody, and they give you a bunch of cliche answers, and they just, you know, they're you know, the answers are not offensive. They're not necessarily raising red flags, but they're kind of raising like an orange flag, where this guy is just like, okay, so he's just reading through a script. It's very important. Like, if you take one thing away, one key takeaway from today's call is, do not make it look like you're reading. Do not make it look like the answers are not organic. Like, you have them pre-prepared. Like, you have them prepared, but it's not so artificial that your personality doesn't.